This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppelliser.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, how's everybody doing? Good? Everything is good over here, as normal. I've got the League of Extraordinarily Noisy Birds still out there. I haven't put them out on the porch yet. So if you guys, again, if you do hear some weird noise, that's where it's still coming from. And the reason why I say this is right now you don't hear anything, but for some reason, when they hear me talk, like a little bit, all of a sudden they decide, oh, it's time to talk and chatter. And it's like, I've turned off all the lights out there where they're at. All right. But still, again, if you hear any weird noise, that's where it's coming from. Now, I'm telling you, it's incredible. So yeah, everything is, I said it before, sometimes dull is great. Dull sometimes is wonderful. It's, it gives you enough time sometimes because just to like, hey, I'm going to just veg out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say right now, this week so far about my biggest challenge has been, by the way, that I was trying to get tickets to go see AC/DC. Yeah, they're going to be here. One place in May in Florida. And it's big. And that's another thing. They're, as you could tell, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? You must be getting older. It's going to be an open air stadium. Once upon a time, I wouldn't have cared if it was on a mountaintop. If I wanted to go to a concert, I'd be like, I'm out here, rain, shine, whatever, like the mailman, sleet, snow, sleet. But then you have a dog that makes noise. But I'm like, man, this is going to be May. And of course, I'm going to be toasting my brains out, as you could tell. But yeah, I'm trying to get tickets. Believe it or not, that thing, talk about competitive. And I don't got a 900 bucks to spare for the seats that are available. So I'm in the middle of that. But getting back to my original point, that's right now, this week, my biggest challenge. I don't want to jinx it, but sometimes dull is a good thing. Nothing wrong with dull. Okay. What was it that Louis L'Amour said? Which, by the way, he was right. Adventure is the romantic name for trouble. So, I'm glad I'm not having any adventures. There you go. So, and notice I didn't mention anything. I didn't do the Progressive Insurance thing about the weather, so, or the dew point or anything. So, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who is the guest today. Her name is Michelle Freed. She's a certified hypnotherapist and remote viewer and instructor, specializing in controlled remote viewing or the Butterfly Effect Center remote viewing group known as VECRVG. She has also co-produced the documentary Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot, has appeared in Ancient Aliens and the documentary Humans with Superpowers. She also served as a producer for Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. She's the founder of LITM Media Inc. and she supports authors and podcast hosts with marketing and publicity. Help me welcome her. How are you doing today, Michelle?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
On the contrary, it's my pleasure. Um, you know what? I talk, the reason why I said that thing is that in prior sometimes, you know, when you live out on the acreage, weather is important. When you have animals, acreage is important. I mean, weather is important, and it's like I promised myself I'm not going to talk about the weather. And you know that Progressive Insurance commercial.
Yeah.
When you start turning into your parents and you start talking about the dew point, and it's like, wait a minute, am I doing that? Yeah, I'm doing that.
Oh my
So
God. In Chicago, everything is about the weather. So like even in the summer, we have to, if we want to plan a party over the weekend, we're
Mm-hmm.
like looking at the weather, you know, is it going to rain? Do we have
Yeah.
indoor plans, outdoor plans? Yeah, it's,
Well, around here where I live, a little bit of, first of all, I have acreage, I have animals, I have plants, and a little bit of rain is great because it's like saves me watering. But out here, not all, but there's some parts that if it starts raining too hard, it's like becomes like a little mud pie. I get out there, like especially where my animals are, and it's like in other words, I have to put like different footwear on there. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's really funny because once upon a time, I think this holds true for most people. When you're younger, you don't care. Rain, shine, lightning, typhoon. You didn't look it up. You didn't look it up. You only thought it's raining. Oh my God, it's getting cloudy. That was all the planning you did was like, oh, well, okay. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden, those things that before were insignificant, now you're like, man, what? I look at the weather and it's like, okay, well, I want to say, especially now when we've had a little bit of weird weather, it's like, what am I gonna wear? Am I gonna be like, "Ah," or worse, like, oh, well, you know what? My son, he trained for the Navy out north of Chicago, so I
in
was up there a couple of times.
in Waukegan area or
The
Grays
one
Lake,
that's north, a little bit north, Lakeshore, or
Grays Lake.
I want to say it's like 40 miles north on the lake, 40 miles north of Chicago.
Oh,
It's a big,
Geneva,
oh my God,
like,
I can't believe that I can't remember. That's where he did his basic training from when he
okay. Yeah.
went. And I was out there like, that was in 2005.
Oh
That
gosh.
I, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm God, 20 years ago. I was out there. When I went to see him when he did his graduation and all that stuff. And I had a chance to go through the downtown and take a walk around, and it was nice. It was nice. See what I
Yeah.
mean about weird? Shut up, Jin Jin. I'm telling you, who needs kids? I get rid of my kids and then I get dogs, and it's like, but anyway, let me ask you, what were your interests originally? Was it hypnotherapy? Was it the remote viewing? How did you get into that field?
So I had like I believe it was 2011. I took
Mm-hmm.
my three kids and a minivan and did a road trip to the West, well, actually all around United States. And I
Okay.
reconnected with a friend of mine from high school who her name is Deborah Lynn Katz, and she has written about three books on psychic development. And
Okay.
so we grew up together, and she said, Michelle, you should take my class. And I was like, ah, that's for people that are special. I don't have that. I was very,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, no, everybody has like abilities and stuff like that. And I'm like, we do? Okay. So I call myself a skeptical believer. And
Okay.
so I took the class, and what ended up happening is time and time again, I just got, I couldn't explain things away that were happening. Like, how did I know this? How did I know that? And so in one class, she introduced us to something new that she was learning called remote viewing. And so she's like, hey, let's just play. Like, she's very spontaneous. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just play with this something new. And I'm like, okay. And so we all did it. And, it's a process. She gave us a quick and dirty explanation of how to do it.
Okay.
And it resonated with me. I felt so good doing it. It felt right in my wheelhouse because there's an element of a kind of scientific or something with evidential
Yes.
information. And so that appealed to me a lot. And so after that, I was sold. And then I went through every training I could. Um, I
Okay.
got, I was asked to be on many, many different kinds of projects. And to this now, I've worked my way up where I teach.
I was
Which
gonna say that must mean your remote viewing is accurate then.
Well, no, I can say, we can go more in depth and that when we talk about accurate. But it's I don't think that we are at a point, and when I say we, I mean humans at large are
Mm-hmm.
at the point yet where we can be 100% accurate. And the
Right.
reason is so when I started developing my class, I used my skills from hypnosis, which you will
Okay.
probably understand, and
Mm-hmm.
I applied them to remote viewing because I really wanted to know what is going on, what's happening, because we, as people that study remote viewing, we
Right.
want to know, we know it works. Okay, hands down, we know it works. But now I'm very curious and I want to know how does it work? What's going on? What's behind the scenes? And so
Right.
I kind of that's how I look. I think and I experiment and all those fun things. So so we can, get
Let me
into.
ask you, and did they ever, I'm just curious, did they ever come back to you, let's say if you did some type of remote viewing, did they ever come back and tell you you were right, or do they just leave you blank, like, hey, you'll never know, I guess, depending on what they were asking you to look for or see?
Right. So let me I'll like tap into kind of the process of it.
Okay.
So remote viewing, which is different than intuitive remote viewing. So intuitive remote viewing is something that people that are psychic or readers or anything like that, they can tune into something like, for example, they'll be like, oh, I wonder what my sister's doing right now. And then
Mm-hmm.
they just put their attention and then they gather intel or information. What is she doing? Where is she? They describe the place. So that is what I personally call intuitive remote viewing.
Okay.
The kind of remote viewing that I do actually comes directly from the military that was created in the 70s. And people can look that up. They can look up Project Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called controlled remote viewing. And in that, we actually have a process to follow. So how it looks if somebody saw us remote viewing, we'd be sitting at a desk or somewhere and writing, like with a
Okay.
pen and paper. And we follow a process that goes into like 4 or 5 phases.
Okay.
And so that's what the training is. The training is teaching you how to navigate through this training and tap into engaging all your senses, engaging it to a particular target. And
Okay.
when we remote view, nobody knows what the target is.
Ah,
So
okay.
it eliminates all the biases. So,
Mm-hmm.
so if we're doing the Eiffel Tower, nobody knows it's the Eiffel Tower. And the other thing that's important is, and how I apply the hypnosis and how our mind works.
Mm-hmm.
In hypnosis, we talk a lot about
Right.
consciousness, and we talk about um, subconscious, and then the third one, which is unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking about the subconscious, which is what we want to be using in remote viewing or any kind of psychic abilities, we want to be tapping into the subconscious part of our mind. And the problem is, and this is when people say to me all the time, well, if you're so psychic, why don't you
Right.
have $1 million?
The lotto, the lottery numbers, or some shit
Right.
like that.
And the truth is, I have an answer for that. And it's because we're human. It's because
Sure.
our left brain, which is what we're engaged in most of the time, the left
Mm-hmm.
brain is searching like a computer, searching for all the patterns, and then makes a determination of what it should perceive. So it's based on subjective information, right?
So let me ask you, when you're going to do a remote, like you're telling me, uh, they give you any pointers, or do they just let you just whoop? They just
So you have this process that you follow. And so it's kind of like set up in a way where you make a very strong foundation. And
right,
then each phase of the process
right.
goes on top. And then what you're doing is taking a deep dive and gathering information and
Okay,
and and details. Okay. But
okay.
the very important part of all this is that we to prevent us from the left brain and
Mm-hmm.
keep us in our subconscious, because as we know, the subconscious does not understand words. It
Exactly. It
knows
sees in
only
images.
images, symbols,
Mm-hmm.
emotions. So
Yes.
what we're trying to do is balance, or not even balance, we're trying to get out of the left brain and into the right. And one of the ways to do that is by describing things and not naming them.
I understand. I see what you mean now.
Right.
And so let me ask, then that's, I guess that's why I guess that's what I didn't, I was wondering, do they ever let you know, were you hot, cold, good, no, maybe, like, you know,
Right. So what happens is they'll call us up and they'll say, "Okay, Michelle, I have a project. Here's a target number." They give us a random number, an arbitrary number.
right?
And so we use that. And then we follow this process. It's all
Mm-hmm.
on paper. We make sketches. We follow what we were trained to do. We take pictures of it and we send it back to them.
Okay.
Then they analyze it, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
they get the answers that they're searching for. So, for example, say we're looking for a missing person,
Right.
and the secret question that we don't know
Mm-hmm.
is describe the current location of so and so,
Right.
or describe the current condition of so and so.
Okay.
So we don't know that part.
Mm-hmm.
We follow, we do our thing, we send it in, and then what they do once they get that, they send an email back or they talk to us or however they're communicating, and they say, okay, your target was, and they'll tell us. They'll say,
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. You know, you get some type of feedback so that you say, okay, that's not bad. Like, now I understand why I saw what I saw.
and then what you do is you take your session and you
Mm-hmm.
go back through it and you line it up with the evidence or the
Okay.
information that they do have. And so the detectives are looking at things that they're looking for, you're looking for things that you're looking for, and it kind of works like that. And there are like 6 or 7 or even 8 of these kind of formalized types of remote viewing. And one of them, which a lot of people love, is called ARV, which is associative remote viewing. And they use that for a binary target. So that's a little
Mm-hmm.
different than like a true crime or missing persons. A
Right.
binary target would be something like if you want to look at the stock market or
Right.
betting on sporting events or uh, I got a job offer in another state. Should I take it or should I stay here?
Really?
So,
Okay.
so we have a whole bunch of different ways to answer
Right.
questions.
And that was going to be my question. When you do the remote viewing, is what you're seeing real time or futuristic a little bit, or does it pick up any past? You know, how do you figure out sometimes that what you're seeing is this is happening right now? Or if I'm seeing this person, this is where they are right now.
Marlene, we're time travelers. So, depending on the question, as you noticed, when
Right.
I said describe the current
Okay.
location, that
Uh-huh.
would mean my directive is
Right.
my session is going to line up with the current location. But if the secret question was just what is the location of so and
Mm-hmm.
so, I could be traveling in the future, in the past,
I see.
anywhere.
Okay.
And that's what's so cool is we just fly through time.
Interesting. Interesting. Which is, it almost makes you think that it's like, I don't want to say predestination, but that what's going to happen is going to happen, and no matter what kind of deal.
Yeah, there's a lot like when you're doing the ARV, that is particularly future based because
Okay.
what you're doing is precognition in
Sure.
that method. You're peeking into the future after a game, for example, a game or a
Mm-hmm.
stock. You're looking at the future to see is that stock going to go up or is it going to go down? Or is it going to go over or under?
Okay.
Okay, and that
Okay.
and what we do to set up a project like that is we don't directly look at the stock and we don't directly look at the game. We
Mm-hmm.
put a kind of like a filter in front of it. So what we do is line it up with photos. So what you're
Okay.
actually looking at is assigned photos that line up with the A side or the B side. That
Okay.
way, we also eliminate any biases. So, like
Okay.
if you want a stock to go up or down, you won't be doing that. Or if you want a particular
Right.
team, the Miami Dolphins to win,
Right. Yeah,
you
that's your
want to
team, and you're like, yeah, I want them to be the winners.
yeah, so we do that, and then what we'll have is like the pictures, the photo set has to be completely different. So like for a quick, you have the ocean, that's water, you have the desert, it's dry. So
Mm-hmm.
is there session leading toward the dry or the water? And
Okay.
then you can make a prediction. If everybody's like looking at water, then whoever was assigned to the water photo, that team's going to
I
win.
mean, they ask you, do the people that read this, do they ever compare what different viewers give them back as far as,
Yeah, I love to work on teams because
okay.
remote viewing is an extension of your personality. So, for example, if you're a person that is an introverted person and you don't
Mm-hmm.
really like people, you're not going to be focusing on people. You're going to like see everything but the people. Or if
Right.
you have like a very technical mind, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be looking at the technical aspects of a target.
Right.
And so when you have three or four or many people, I'm working on a project right now. It's a cold case from way back when,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we have 8 viewers, and I
Okay.
love that because each one comes to the table. They have corroborating information, and they also
Right.
bring in new stuff. And
Okay.
so it is a nail biter. I'm not kidding. You sit
Mm-hmm.
there going, "What? Oh my gosh!" It's crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just
And
I'm
luckily
obsessed.
now with DNA, they're able sometimes to give, a lot of these Jane or John Does. Um, because I mean, I work with a search and rescue group where I'm at,
Hmm.
and sometimes they have these people that go missing, and sometimes they're never found. They're
Right.
like, and sometimes, especially when they become skeletal remains,
Yeah.
especially if been out there, um, and the or sometimes they're unidentified, just because they might not be local. And sometimes they look for missing people reports like the area, but sometimes they're from someplace else. And in some cases, believe it or not, some of these people are never reported missing by anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said, "Hey, I haven't seen so and so for like a good long time." And and of course, I know that DNA, it's everybody thinks like the CSI effect, but that takes a while to get that done.
Hmm.
So that's very interesting. Let me ask you, so when you guys are working on that, do you ever have unidentified remains, or is it a question of finding out what exactly happened to them?
Right. So it depends. The whole project is set up by the question of what you want to know.
Okay.
And we do so many things, not just true crime. We could do
Mm-hmm.
esoteric targets like, is there an alien base on the moon?
Why not?
Or is haunted places. So like
Mm-hmm.
there's always a big history with certain places that are haunted. So
Right.
if you're planning to go do an investigation, you can remote view before you go and see if you can get some information before you go, or you could do it after you go. So there's like a lot. So it's all kind of based around that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
In other words, or no pun intended. Oh, that place is dead as a doornail or something. I tell everybody, especially some of these historical places, they develop this reputation that after a while, all it is just reputation.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I remember somebody telling me a story about a murder that happened at a hotel in a room. I think it was Rebecca Pittman. I don't know if you've
Yes, yes,
interviewed her.
yes, I just spoke to Rebecca not too long ago.
Okay, so she was telling me about, and then it ended up a whole history kind of unfolded behind that.
Hmm.
In fact, we actually had a team because she not only writes the books on, the history of different hauntings, she
Right.
also does true crime, and we
Hmm.
have a whole chapter in her book on the Murdaugh case where she took a compilation
Yes,
of our sessions and put them in her book. So
really.
we had a bunch of
We
hits.
spoke briefly when I last spoke to her. We did speak about the Murdoch case because that's the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, I'm telling you. Oh my
You
gosh.
know that even now after they convicted him, now it's going back, and the charges. And it's like when I read that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, wow. Yeah,
exactly.
that thing is
Yeah.
far from over.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I'm on this mission that I really want remote viewing to be part of everybody's life. I want it to, bleed through into the mainstream world.
Hmm.
And it's just going to take a lot of time because, and the more that we have hits, we need to publicize those hits. We need
Sure,
to tell people how we have been successful, and the reason that I want this to go mainstream is because this, we're scratching the surface of our potential as humans. There is
sure.
so much more that we can do. And
Hmm.
and to me, I don't want to get political or anything, but if we're messing around with all this politics and all
Yes,
that stuff, it's distracting us from our potential.
of
So
course.
I think that all of us in this world, in this light that we serve as a, I feel like a holy roller right now, but
Go right ahead, roll along, Rolly.
we serve as people that set examples for people.
Sure.
If we're, and we really need to work hard to like get along with each other, even so
Yes.
that we set an example to other people on how we deal in business, how we deal with each other as people, how we accept
Hmm.
weird things and things like that. And most important is laughing and humor.
Of
That's
course. And I tell everybody, because when you've been alive an X amount of years, you remember when life existed without this.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
And even though with yeah, you're even an answering machine. You know that once upon a time there wasn't even such a thing as an answering machine? Yeah.
Oh,
And you
right.
usually had maybe one or two phones in your house and that was it. And if
Yeah.
people called and nobody answered, they just call back later the next day or send you something in the mail. So
You
yes,
know,
and
I have a funny story.
go ahead.
I had an epiphany once. This is the craziest thing. I
Uh-huh.
I was in the car driving, and I had three kids under the age of 5
I
at
understand that. Been there, done that.
okay. And I was so grateful that somebody invented that little mirror that, do you know what I'm talking about? Isn't that hilarious? The
Yes.
little mirror that you put where you could see the kids in the
In the
back.
back. Yes.
I remember it was like such a memory for me. Like, whoever invented this mirror, I don't know how my mom did
What
it.
a- well, my boys especially, they would accuse me of having a super elastic arm that
Right?
could reach beyond, like even if I wasn't looking, I'd be like, oh, and it's like, oh God,
Yeah,
they always talk about themselves like she's gonna get you, even if you think she's not gonna reach you, she's gonna reach you,
yeah,
because
yeah,
everybody thinks that they're gonna be the ones to like, you know, like when you're like,
yeah,
stop it,
exactly. We
yeah.
see everything.
Oh yeah, we
And
see everything. Yeah, you have eyes in the back of your head, like for
yeah,
sure,
and
for
that's
sure.
why. And now I have a mirror.
Well, no, it's really funny because I remember whenever I actually would be someplace with no kids, I found myself still like my head was on a swivel, and I'd have to remind myself, you don't have to look out for them, the
Yeah,
kids. Because
I
normally
know.
I'd be like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and I could hear things. They'd be like, how did you hear that? It's like, just I heard whatever it
yeah.
was.
Don't
But
ask.
yeah, don't ask. I just know I heard. What was it? Did I hear something? No, no. Everybody's like, no. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, no. That's why I said been there, done that. But anyway, getting back to what you were saying, that I tell everybody, I think us as human beings, we have like a direct, how's this, reaction to all this technology that we're going through. And I say it, I'm not anti-technology. I think this was wonderful if you get a flat tire or you
yeah,
don't know where you are. Okay. But that being said, I think part of us yearns for mystery, and we have like a reaction against, like, that you they can find you, that everywhere is like, they can ping you, the GPS, where we want to, I think the complete person has a part of their life which, like you said, is not everything technology based, that there's a little bit of mystery, of romanticism, of mystical stuff. It's a well-rounded thing. You see what I'm
hmm,
saying? Because
yeah,
if you get one or the other that's just totally it, it's like,
right,
you're lopsided. And again, I tell everybody, whatever the flip side is that this makes you instantly available.
right,
Whereas
right.
once upon a time, even now, somebody will come and go, "Why didn't you answer?" It was like, because sometimes, I don't have a pocket. I leave it on my desk because I'm going out. But people get upset. Like, why aren't you instantly available for me to call you? And I'm talking about family members, by the way.
Yeah.
And I say, once upon a time, that didn't that didn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry about that.
Patience is underrated.
Oh,
It's just, I think we need to get back to that is, and I think that is some of the, with anxiety, the kids right
yes,
now, and like even all my kids' friends, and they're all struggling with anxiety. And I think
right.
it feels like the fast pace of the world is not,
Yes,
it's not, uh, kind of aligned with our human nature.
right.
It's like we are, slow and easy people,
Well, I think
we
that
have
also
quirks.
with kids, unfortunately, with the social, I'm going to go with social media, and of course, everything being, like I said, um, this happens to everybody when you're that age. If something embarrassing happens to you, or something, especially now that it can be recorded, how's this?
Yeah,
You
right.
think it will be there forever and ever, and
Uh-huh.
that the spotlights are shining down on you,
Yeah.
and that they're blasting the film or whatever that incident was on the side of a New York building forever and ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, guess what? Which, unfortunately, some teenagers do stupid, really stupid stuff,
Yeah.
as far as self-harm. And it's like, I guarantee you, in 24 hours, the 48, nobody will remember because everybody's so caught up in going, oh, yes, you know, you know, nobody cares
I know.
what happened to you or what it was. By the way, at the same time, I do discourage, please don't record something embarrassing and send it to anybody. That's stupid.
I
Boy,
know.
boy or girl, don't do that.
Yeah.
But still, nobody remembers, nobody cares because they kind of telescope on that event forever
Right.
and ever for the next 300 years. Everybody will know that, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that that's contributed, that instant access or whatever you want to call it, has a lot to do with right now with teenagers, with their anxiety levels. Um, Unfortunately, the use of SSRIs, and all the other things that go with it. It's like, man, it used to be that the teenage years were the best years of your life. You were
Yeah.
like growing up and, and going to parties and, crushes and romance and if you were on a team or something. And it's become very, very complicated,
It
really
is. It
complicated.
is very complicated. And
Yes.
but I do, I'm very positive about it. I feel like we're on a paradigm shift.
I'm hoping.
I look in the TikTok, and I see that there are a lot of young people that are
Hmm.
open to some of these ideas, and I'm
Yes.
counting on them to lean into it and
Yes.
explore our potential, and I think that, you know, yeah, I'm positive about it. I think that's what's going to happen. I think
Well,
they're going
this
to
is,
come
and
through.
this is what you were talking about originally, where your life, or your lifestyle or whatever, like you said, depending on your personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or whatever, everybody's different, that you have your life is well grounded, that it's not all science, that there's space in there for, I know this is like, go out and, go out in nature or walk around or go to the park or go to the beach
Yeah.
or just hang out with people. Which, by the way, that's one of my big things is that this creates too much isolation as far as when in computers and stuff. Where, man, I remember even as a teenager, you wanted to be at the beach, or had plans to be outside or go here or go there or, you know,
I'm glad you're bringing that up because along those same lines, and I've been thinking the same thing. Myself and a co-teacher that I work with from England is
mm-hmm,
flying
okay,
in April, and we are taking a road trip and teaching remote
okay,
viewing on the road.
that's
So we
great,
so as a publicist, I'm working on that side of things too. I'm
okay,
lining up a whole bunch of locations where we can
okay,
have venues where we can have students come and in person. Because I
okay,
mean, I am grateful that we can do things like this
yes,
online and Zoom,
yes,
but it doesn't 100% replace being
no,
in person. And I think um, a lot of people are craving that person to person
yes,
contact. So we're going to the West Coast starting in April, and then in
Hmm.
August we're going to
Okay.
be going to the East Coast. So maybe we'll hit Miami.
Yes, let me know. Get me low.
Yeah, meet
Well,
up with you.
I left Miami a few years ago.
Oh,
I'm in
you're
North
not.
Florida. I still have a
Oh,
lot of family in
wow.
Miami. Oh,
Okay.
Miami's gotten too crowded,
Yeah.
and I mean, I was born and raised in Miami, so I've seen everything that goes on there. And
Okay.
every once in a while I travel back there, and I'm like looking at the traffic, and I'm like, I need to go home. It's like too much, especially everybody knows Florida, but especially South Florida's got so much, the infrastructure is way behind the population.
Oh, wow.
As far as like the traffic. Well, if you live in an urban area, you know what I mean, but still it's like, oh, forget this.
Yeah.
I'm close enough to travel a couple of hours away, but still it was like, nah, 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 nah. I don't feel like I want to be in rush hour traffic 24/7. Nah.
Right, right. Yeah, that's you have more important things to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
No. I was like, but
Yeah.
but yes, absolutely. Please let me know. I would really
Yeah.
like that. I
We'll
would really
meet
like,
up and get a group of people
yes.
together. And I
Yes.
think getting back to the basics again and people meeting
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Yes.
I have a whole bunch of plans to reignite that personal contact.
Yes.
So I'm working
And
on
I
a,
know that a lot of people, it's like, come on, we're social animals. We are. We really
yeah,
are.
we are.
A
Yeah.
lot of people don't. And like I said, I know there's introverts, like you said, that it's like, if you want to give me people, you got to give it to me slow, low doses. Like, no, don't put me in that crowd. Like, oh, that's like, no, no, no. But at the end of the day, it's still good. I think it's still good.
Yeah, I think I think an introverted person, I don't think it necessarily means that they want to be like, sheltered completely. They just like
No,
smaller groups, more intimate groups.
right.
And so I think, there's room for everyone and there's opportunities for everyone. And I think we just need to open that door again. I think
Sure.
uh, the pandemic
I
and all
think
that
a lot of people, like,
narrowed everything
especially
down.
as you grow a little bit older, you kind of realize, I mean, I know that especially with the teenagers, they kind of hide behind the camera, like all you see is my face, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but as you
yeah.
get older, you realize, oh man, I gotta get out there and deal with rejection, because I think that's what they're all afraid of, boys and
Yeah,
girls,
yes.
of dealing with rejection. And by when I say rejection, I don't mean like somebody spits in your face. I'm talking about like, you say something to somebody and they
Disapproval,
look at you and they walk away. It's like,
like disapproval. Yeah,
you'll live.
yeah, you'll live.
You'll live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on to all that.
So yeah, the thing is, but that thing with the if you were talking about ghosts or exorcisms, I would say this is paranormal sabotage. Hold on. And that's, by the way, which is, I kid around, but sometimes that's happened, and I say this is why everything is going goofy. Okay,
Yeah.
start ham. There we
There you
go. Yay! Thank God for, I will be the editing genie afterwards. I don't know. I don't know if I hit something here, but anyway, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, we've done remote viewing. I've heard it in some cases where remote viewers, when and by this I'm not sure the process, like you said, there's a process that when you hit, like, I guess, I don't know what to call it, a certain plane,
go. Hmm.
that there's other things, other beings, or other entities that are there. Have you ever encountered anything like that?
Well, um, so when we do remote viewing, we're kind of surrounded by intention. So
Okay.
pretty much we set up the target with a specific question, like I gave the example earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times where maybe we make a mistake with the question, or maybe it's a very open ended question, and that
Right.
will allow anything to happen. You get a big spectrum of an experience. And so
Okay.
one time, we did an experiment where we thought, hey, let's do a remote viewing session, but don't pick a target until after the session's done. Because
Okay.
the idea is that we should know what the target's going to be, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we had like a little pot or kitty or a hat, whatever, with a whole bunch of ideas of what we want to remote view, which we keep for, practice. So all different kinds of questions. And so we thought, hey, this will be fun. We'll pick the target after we do the session. So I'm doing the session, and all of a sudden I get to a certain part of the session, and you know that voice in your head that talks to you, that whisper? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, like, and it kind of happened slowly, but I noticed this. It was like a baritone voice. It wasn't mine anymore. And it was like this voice that was doing what my regular voice, like, okay, put that here, put that there. And I kept going, what's that? Like, what? It's like this deep voice, and it's starting to kind of hijack the session a little bit. And so
Right.
I put break to, so I can, step out of the session. So I wrote
Uh-huh.
break on the paper to say that I'm going to break. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, like, what was that? That never happened before. And so
Okay.
I called up a friend of mine. I'm like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
this voice and I don't know what's going on. He's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, he goes, well, why don't you ask it? Like, when you have something, ask, who are you? What you doing?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like it, like, I wasn't scared. It was just weird.
Exactly.
I wasn't freaked out or anything. Um, but I was just kind of like, what is this? So I'm like, okay, next time I finish my session, so I went to sleep that night, and as I was falling asleep, I felt like I was falling backwards and into darkness. And then when I woke up in the morning, it felt like this energy that just went whoosh out of my head. And
Okay.
then I kind of felt like, when you have surgery and you're coming out of the anesthesia, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like that. I felt
Okay.
like a little like out of it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So again, there were three of us that did the session. So I said to my friend, like, this happened overnight. And he's like, yeah, I had something weird happen in my dreams too. Let's ask the other person. So we called her up, and she goes, I don't know. I smoked some weed. I don't remember anything.
I was gonna say sounds like you got a spiritual roofie or something. You're coming out like I don't remember anything, but God, whatever it was.
I know.
So she was the only one that was okay.
Yeah, she was fine. She's just like, yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. So then we decided, all right, we got to know what this target is. So we
Okay.
pulled out the target, and I don't remember it exactly, but it had something to do with some kind of ET that came from a UFO
Oh
from
boy.
somewhere. So that was our target. So it kind of like all made sense.
Okay. So
So
in other words, you were caught off left field.
Yeah, yeah. So this thing may or may not have tried to contact me because we were tuning in.
Right.
And so maybe it was trying to talk to me or get my attention or something. I know it sounds wacky, but uh,
No, no.
yeah, but
I understand what you mean, and that's why I asked you, like, do you ever come across, like, in other words, you're maybe intent on doing whatever it is, you're trying to get into, and then somebody comes and tries to engage you or something in the middle of a session.
and
Uh,
I have to also tell you that everything I do
mm-hmm.
in remote viewing as a teacher, any projects I work on, is all surrounded by benevolence.
Okay.
And that is my intention. So nothing bad has ever happened to me.
Okay.
The only time that it could be a little questionable, but we prepare our viewers, is when, unfortunately, you're doing a true crime. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to see some nasty stuff,
Sure.
like, but people, there are people that can handle it and people that can't. And the people that can't, that they don't do those targets. The people that can handle it,
Mm-hmm.
we actually have a fail safe for them. We teach them how to disconnect from the target afterwards. We
Right.
have them kind of tune into their higher self and say, Is this in my highest good to do this session?
Right.
But we do have this built into the process because I feel like it's responsible. We also have a method that we do medical applications or
Okay.
medical analysis. We
Okay.
always ask for permission before we
Okay.
do that. So I think it's really important to note that everything that I do is surrounded by benevolence and
Mm-hmm.
goodness. And so I do not open up any doors to anything negative.
That's really interesting. Because I can just see so many people asking for things like yeah, I mean, besides the I don't know if you a couple of well, it's already been a couple of years. Remember there was this guy Fenn that he was out of New Mexico. He died, by the way, and he had hidden some treasure. Some
Ah,
somewhere in it's somewhere in either in the Grand Canyon, the surrounding
that
states.
sounds familiar. Yeah.
Bottom line, five people ended up killing themselves because one, they went where they really, and a lot of people, because it's a treasure, would go out there by themselves, the dumbasses.
Yeah.
And of course, stuff happened to them. They were
Yeah.
by themselves, and yeah. And I'm thinking, I can imagine somebody contacting her trying to find out where the treasure is. You know, like,
Yeah.
where's this treasure?
Yeah, we've
And
done some of those. Yeah, those
yeah,
are fun. Those are so fun.
yes. And
Yeah.
what he did was he wrote a book, and in the book he made like a poem, like he described. But of course, it's supposed to be like a treasure map, and there was like I think it was on Facebook, I think, where they had a bunch of people that were trying to figure this out and were actually going out there, and everybody was comparing notes, saying, "I read it, and what that means is this."
Yeah.
It was some people were really heavy into this search for Fenn's treasure. All
Yeah,
right.
it's called age I think it's called A if I have the acronym right, like AGT or something like that. It's
Hmm.
this kind of trendy thing where certain I think this what's the name of that channel? Swimming channel, swimming something like that. They
Okay.
did an so what they basically do is they put out a whole bunch of clues to get
Hmm.
everybody involved. And there was another one that was had a lot of conspiracy around it. It was called Cicada, and then three numbers, 394, I don't know. And
Right.
there's a lot of people that believe that this was set up by maybe the CIA to
Okay.
try to vet out really smart people to join. And there was like $1 million prize, but the
Yes.
the puzzles were very like you had to be really smart. And so I think they did that for a few years. I haven't heard about it lately, but I think all those what's it called? Reality alternate reality A ARG games. I think
And
it's
you know
called
what? You look at some of the stuff that this guy, he had said, I'm going to put coins, I'm going to put this, I'm going to put this. And it was going to be valued more or less at about $2 million when he had
yeah,
that. In other words, the incentive was there, believe me.
yeah.
But he always said, because he died when he was like 90, and it was out, and basically it was out there for like almost 10 years. But he always said, I will never put it in a place that an 80-year-old man
Couldn't get to.
couldn't
Yeah,
get to.
yeah.
And for some reason, people just blew by that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that clue,
They
and they
made
kept
it
going
harder.
into these. One guy drowned in the Rio Grande, another one fell off a thing because they were traipsing in all these areas, and he kept saying
Yeah.
at the end when, you know, but some of these things you look at and you go, who is crazy enough to do this? And it's surprisingly a lot of people will go out there,
Well,
especially if we're
well, it's
talking a lot of
definitely
money.
yeah, it's definitely safer to remote view it because you can sit in the comfort of your own
Sure,
home. And
yes, until you get that, what was it, that people, I'm telling you, people, it's like, you know how you hear about people getting that gold fever thing?
mhm.
It's like people like really would spend all their spare time,
Yeah.
um, like really, they were like, for lack of a better word, they were obsessed on this stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, that's what I was thinking is like, hey, find that. And there's a lot of, I think of Oak Island is like, okay, we'll send Michelle out to Oak Island and see if they
Yeah.
finally, they'd be like, no, we still have 3 more seasons to go,
Yeah, we gotta
before,
come
so that
on.
before we almost find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I saw like 2 seasons of Oak Island and I said, nope, that's
Yeah.
it for me.
You know, I did some work with some people with Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I did some sessions on Skinwalker, and then I got the opportunity to kind of go there, and that
Hmm.
was one of the documentaries is one of my sessions. Um,
Okay.
so,
Let
but
me
yeah,
answer the thing. This is with the current people that are there when you were out there.
Yeah,
with
the current
Fugle?
people. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I'm not. I'm doing a remote viewing outside of that.
Okay.
It's yeah, you'll have to see it to
Okay.
understand.
But let me
But
ask you this. What, and that's really, and in a way it's good. Generally, how do you feel? Is there something out there, or is it just, I've, based on what they've described, this is even from before when Bigelow owned it and the
right.
Shermans were on there.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they described, I'd be like, what? Get my cows, we're leaving right now, you know. But they stayed out there
Yeah.
almost like 2 years. And what's really funny is the people that were out there that were named Earl, that were there like
Yeah.
60 years, was a couple.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
way, just because something they claimed, a court, because they died and they had no kids, and I think a brother or brother-in-law, you know,
Yeah.
they supposedly said, we never saw anything out here, no lights, no nothing, you know. That doesn't mean that they didn't see anything. Maybe they just were, you know, people
Yeah.
back then just didn't want to talk about, you know, weird. In other words, when you hear about the thing, it's not just the UFOs. They have cryptid sightings. They have that hitchhiker effect for the people that have gone out there. It's like, you name it. It's like, what else? When
Yeah.
you were out there, what feeling did you get? Like there's something on there as far as the land? Is it an extraterrestrial effect? Is it a portal scenario? Did you ever get any feeling in
I
one
mean,
direction?
I did get like some of more of mine was more an energetic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was also perceiving some orbs and um it's orbs that were I was kind of like reading into what the orbs, their purpose and what they were and more about them. And it was like a protection. So they're
Okay.
protecting something.
Okay.
And then just taking a step back about orbs is way back like 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was targeted on orbs. And
Okay.
so in that session, the information I got from that session kind of set me up for my belief system on what orbs are. So
Okay.
back then, like 3 or 4, whatever amount of years, I was at ESETI Ranch, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody asked me. She didn't tell me what I was viewing. She just said, "I have something I want you to remote view," just on the spot. So I said,
Okay.
"Okay." So I went into privacy. I took like an hour. I did a session. I brought it back to her. What came up in my session, because a lot of times in a session you'll get metaphors and all sorts. So I was getting these what I perceived as like blood cells
Okay.
and running through a kind of artery system or a river
Mm-hmm.
or some kind of channels just moving around. And then when I kind of took a deeper dive into these cells, I got information like words like and like a sentient being that
Okay.
had no ending and no beginning.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't know I was doing orbs. So I was like, what the heck is this session?
Right,
So,
right.
so then I bring it back to her and she hands me a picture of herself dancing in a field with a whole bunch of orbs around her. And so I'm like, oh, these
Interesting.
are orbs. It wasn't blood, because that was a
Right.
metaphor. My left brain was trying to make sense.
Sure.
And the right brain's like, no, I'm trying to explain to the left brain it's not blood, it's orbs.
But they
Um,
just kind of look alike.
yeah, yeah. And so then moving forward to when I was asked to do Skinwalker Ranch, the
Mm-hmm.
orbs popped up. And I was tuning in, what is the purpose? And it was some kind of protection
Okay.
and stuff like that. So it was an energetic. I didn't perceive anything like ETs or anything like that. Um, if I take myself out of the remote viewing world and then
Mm-hmm.
use my left brain and analyze what I think,
Right.
my left brain says that there could be some kind of vortex or energy, something
Right.
that is underground there, maybe a meteor or something. I mean, after all, we're like 4 billion years old.
Sure.
So anything could be under that ground. So
Exactly.
I'm feeling like something underneath.
And
It,
that's really why I like the show, that they try to do a scientific analysis. But
yeah,
you could tell all these guys walking around there, they're all trying to remain very calm and stoic. But you
yeah,
could tell sometimes they like kind of wig out a little bit, like what?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's why I especially like the show, that because of the way they're trying to approach it.
yeah,
But they themselves, you could tell they can't they you could tell they don't know what direction to go. Is this, like you said, is this something in the land that's like, I mean, I'm talking not metaphysical. Is there something buried here,
right, right, yeah.
or
So
that
I think it's a kind of combination or something. Yeah.
so yeah, they're that they're, and it's like, well, and you could tell I laugh every time, they bring some contractor out there to work out there. Somebody leaves, like their equipment malfunctions, breaks, or somebody gets sick. Like the one of these people that they invite to do whatever it is for them, and it'd be like, oh, do you really want to go out there? I don't know. I think it's a weird piece of land, but I'm always curious eventually if they ever do find out what is causing some of these anomalies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Uh, it's an interesting, and I know that there's a couple of areas, other ranches in that area, which have very similar. They just don't
The
have the same
blind,
exposure.
the Blind Frog Ranch.
Blind Frog Branch,
Yeah,
exactly.
I was actually there on the
Okay,
land there. I saw the water and it was, you could feel, there was like you feel, it's hard to explain, but you do
okay.
feel something. So I don't know what it is, but it feels different.
Let me
So
ask you, does it make you feel okay, indifferent, or
um
uneasy?
I was feeling uneasy, but not
Hmm.
scared.
Right, right. No,
Um,
but and that's why I'm saying sometimes
Unfamiliar.
scared. It's like,
You know what? Unfamiliar would be a better
yes,
word.
yes,
Unfamiliar.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Like this is not normally. I don't walk around places that feel like this, so your body is instantly like,
Yeah, like what the heck is this? Yeah.
what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Exactly. Mhm.
And it could be, it could be a portal, it could be a vortex, it could be something, God, yeah, I'll use the example of EMFs, how sometimes they'll affect a person's brain. Maybe there is something out there that, who
Right.
knows,
Yeah.
that that I wanted to ask you also, and since we're already we're going out there in the, have you ever worked with anything having to do with cryptids or Bigfoot or anything like that? Let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I had a session that somebody assigned me. Again, I had no clue. And what was really significant is in this particular session, he was my monitor. So we were doing it I wasn't doing it by myself with pen
Okay,
and paper. I was doing it with somebody monitoring me. And
okay,
what's really important to know about a monitor is that they absolutely can't lead you on
mm-hmm,
anything. So everything
okay,
has to come from me. All they do is kind of direct you to look at more details.
right,
And so I had a very good monitor that didn't leave me. But anyway, so I was getting a subject, and the first thing right out of the bat is I felt like the subject was a female.
okay.
And so he told me to stand up and to blend with the subject, that it was safe, blend with the subject, and touch your body and describe. So I'm like, okay, and then I'm touching
Oh,
my body. So I started like putting my hand on my arm, and the first thing I noticed was that my hand felt like it wanted to go longer. Like I'm like, wait, I'm a very big woman. and
that's,
my left
yeah,
brain said, Michelle, this is not a woman, it's a man. If it's big, it's a man. But
right,
my right brain said, it's a woman, it's female. And my
right,
left brain's like, and I'm going back
yeah,
and forth.
right,
And I'm like, all right, I hung on to the female. Then I was like, oh gosh, I have hairy arms. And then I started getting a clue, like this has to be a Bigfoot or something. But I was very
okay.
confused about why I was stuck on this woman thing. And then after that, I started kind of going into the details. Like it was tribal and the culture and things like that, like I was getting into. So there's something called an AOL, which is what we call an analytical overlay. That
Mm-hmm.
means that I took some idea and started creating a story around it. So
Okay.
sometimes it's made up because your mind just wanders and fills in the gaps of what it doesn't know, or sometimes it could be real. But I'm because I don't have evidence to prove that I'm right, I'm going to call it an AOL. But I was getting a lot of information on Bigfoot children and their culture and their emotions. So I was getting
Okay.
into this whole narrative about this kind of background in Bigfoot.
So in
So
other words, they're more than just an animal, is from what you're
right,
describing.
right. It was more
Okay.
of a, yeah, more intelligence to it.
Mm-hmm.
So the person, so we ended the session and I found out that my target was the Patterson Gimlin footage.
Wow.
And is it real or a hoax? That was my
Okay.
question. Was it real or a hoax? And I'm like, if I was really stuck on this woman, it has to be real. Like,
Right.
So yeah, that was my cryptid experience.
And I wanted to ask you something because, and I was like, I gotta remember to ask her, which it was like, what is this? But there's only one person that's going to tell me what this is. What is Skinny Bob?
Skinny Bob is the video. If you go on YouTube, you can find it.
Okay.
Skinny Bob is it was, nobody knows who put this video up, but it came from Russia, I think. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
it came from Russia. And somebody posted it, and it's this alien looking thing, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody has been able to debunk it totally, because it looks
Really?
very, yeah, you have to look it up. You might
Okay.
be able to edit it in. So
Okay.
we did some remote viewing of it. You can look up John Vivanco.
Mm-hmm.
He has actually our sessions. He made like a mini documentary of it. So if you look up John Vivanco, I can look and see if I can find the clip of it and then send it to
Okay.
you. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it has like pictures of our session, so you can see what a session looks like and lined up to Skinny Bob.
How
So
old is this video of Skinny Bob? How far back does it
I
go?
think it may have been put out in the 90s, I want to
That
say, but we
old.
could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's been around for a while. Yeah.
And people don't realize once upon a time, people post this stuff up, and it's like now that everybody knows who posted what up. There was a time there, like you said, there's somebody created an account, just uploaded
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, it's the one you probably, when you see it, you'll go, "Oh, that." He has like a black turtleneck and a big head and long arms, and he blinks. His eyes blink,
I'm
and
not, I haven't put it, but yeah, I'm looking at it right now. As far as yeah, I see that there's yeah, which I got to look at this. All
yeah,
right. So I had never, believe it or not, and I've heard a lot of weird stuff. I had never heard of Skinny Bob. I got to ask her, who is Skinny Bob?
that's Skinny Bob. Yep, yep.
And the whole question, I imagine, is this a real ET with a
Yeah,
turtleneck?
yeah, like the whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was being interviewed, and all of us that remote viewed it were tapping into his emotions.
So what did you, the results of the remote
So
viewing?
one of the first things we had was that in the crash, where he crash landed,
Uh-huh.
there were some other survivors, but then
Right.
died later.
Mm-hmm.
And he personally felt abandoned, and because
Okay.
and he was having a lot of resentment being here. He was
Mm-hmm.
kind of sad. He was angry. He was annoyed. All those
Okay.
kinds of things. But most what was interesting is the evidence of that there were other beings that were with him, and that there was more than one vehicle or UFO or something.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, you'll have to watch it's John Vivanco, and
I'll find it. I'll find it. I'll
yeah,
find it.
because
I'll
I don't
trace it
remember
down.
every detail from that. It was a while ago when we did it. So, but it
That's
was,
very interesting.
yeah, it was very interesting. So,
Well, maybe one day they'll disclose for real.
I know, right? Like,
Yeah. And
I
then
know.
there'll be a lot of people like, well, then now what do we look up? What what are we gonna be? What's a conspiracy now? Because
Yeah,
it's like because we're like that. I'm telling you, human beings are like that. For all that, we get all the science. We always need to know the mystery. There's always got to be a mystery about something.
I know, exactly. That's so true.
So yeah, let me tell you something. It has been absolutely wonderful to speak to you, Michelle. But for my podcast listeners, how can they find you?
Well, so I think I put, yeah,
Hmm.
butterflyeffectscenter.com under my name.
Yes. Okay.
You can check out the classes that I teach. Also, there's a link if anybody's interested in a publicist, I do that. Or if
Okay.
anybody's going to be in Oklahoma or Texas in April and May and California, we're going to be teaching in-person classes there. And then in August and so on, we'll be on the East Coast. So you
You'll
and
be
I,
posting this on your website then, right? As far as your stops.
yeah, we'll be doing that. Yeah, for sure. And
Excellent.
yeah, so yeah, that's
Yes.
that. Oh, and
Well,
then I have my own podcast.
okay.
It's called Sci Chicks. And so me and my best friend from high school, we're
Okay.
more of a funny, like humor kind of based thing. So it's
Okay.
PSICHICKS talk show, Sci
Okay.
Chicks talk show. So
Right. That's wonderful. I like that. I really like that. Again, thank you so much. I'm going to put a link to your website on the credits of the show,
thank
but
you.
that's why I
Thank you.
did want you because I have my podcast listeners. Sometimes, everything is like, again, thank you so much. And I definitely would love it if you guys come to Florida, make a stop in Florida.
We will.
All
We
right.
are definitely going to do that. But it was great to talk to you, Marlene,
Likewise.
and great to talk with the audience. And I hope to
Yes.
hear from everybody. So if anyone has questions, just contact me and
And I know what I want to be doing afterwards. I got to look up Skinny Bob, as you can
you
tell.
look up Skinny Bob.
Again, thank you so much, Michelle. Take care. Wow. I, sup- I'm telling you, I'm like, Skinny Bob. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And the reason why I say this is, you know what? When you have been involved in the paranormal, and when I say paranormal, okay, and by extension, it's not all just ghosts, it's UFOs and cryptids and this and that. You think I've heard it all. I've seen it all. I've heard all the stories or all the weird whatever. So, hey, you know what? And I had never heard of Skinny Bob. And sometimes that gets to me like, all right, you thought that you knew what Skinny Bob was? Or what, that you've heard it all, in other words. And you find out, no, you haven't. See, let me see if I can get a Skinny Bob pic on here. Hold on. All right, Skinny Bob, come here. And there. Okay, I'll just show this. And, here we go. Hold on. These are just some images of Skinny Bob. As you could tell, it looks like I wasn't too far. It looks like a gray, even though they've given him a little bit more human-like with a turtleneck. But it looks like a typical gray, longish arms, long, that's pretty out there. Like that. That's your typical gray as they're described. See, now it demands that I find out what's the story behind Skinny Bob. By the way, I know that the show is a little bit staggered, but today, and I'm sure today, Gene Hackman, a very famous actor, was found dead in his home. By the way, he's 95 years old. In and of itself, that, actors die. And the God knows, 95, that's a good long life. You're 5 years short of having lived 100 years. Plus, you made so many movies, you were successful, in other words. The mystery is, and God knows, maybe by the time you see this, the mystery, there will be no mystery, was that his wife, which is 30 years younger than him, was found dead, as well as a dog. They had three dogs, and one dog was dead. Originally, when I saw the one dog dead, I thought, okay, maybe somebody decided to do something. But no, leave two dogs behind, but take one. So anyway, I still haven't gotten the full story. How long is they lived out in New Mexico, or lived past tense. And I'm not sure how long they had been out there. I don't know if this was I don't think it was a recent. From the little that's coming out, it's not like, which makes you ask, like, was there ever um anybody checking on them? You know, and there was part of the thing was that they had found some scattered pills near the body of his wife. Like I believe he was passed away and he was in a bedroom, but she was found dead in another part of the house, in the living room, and there was the dead dog, and there was some scattered pills. Maybe he passed away, and this is just me making stuff up. I don't really know at this point. Um, Maybe she became despondent because God knows she was 30 years younger. She was like, I think 64, 65 years old. Uh, and let me see, this is the part that I think that's, to me, that's kind of a little bit sad, is that they're saying that apparently they were dead for some time before a maintenance worker discovered their bodies. Okay. And I don't know what they mean by some time, for like a considerable length of time. I don't know how to interpret that. Are we talking 1 day, 5 days, 2 weeks? Um, they were saying that the gas company out there, I guess they had gas lines into the house. They didn't find like a leakage because everybody was thinking, well, maybe even though he was old, maybe there was a gas leak, like, or a carbon monoxide kind of deal. I don't think that might be it. And again, when you're 95, you could just, that's it, kaput. It's over. Um, but I don't know, there's a little bit of a mystery attached to that. Again, I think um it has to be more, and this is just me, I might be totally wrong. That maybe even though she was much younger than him, she grew despondent at having lost, because I believe they were married in 1991, if I read correctly. So they had been together for quite a while, for many years, 3 decades at least. Maybe she grew despondent. She was a classical pianist, and I guess my point is, though, that you know no nobody checks on you, and you're discovered dead by a maintenance worker. And I guess, and I don't know, but to me, even if you live apart, like, nobody's checking on you. How's this? Not checking on, but that doesn't sound right. But you don't have any kids or family or friends or anybody that calls you up and says, "Hey, how's everything going? You guys doing okay? Everything fine?" Like one of those deals, like, nobody is saying, "Hey, I haven't heard from Jean or from, I can't remember what her name is. Um, from, hey, have they called you? No, they haven't called me. That's weird." That kind of deal where Betsy, I'm sorry, that's her name. Betsy Arakawa. Like, no, nobody out there's missed not hearing from either one of them. I think that's kind of sad. I do. I do. And you're discovered dead, and I'm waiting to see what the length of time is by a maintenance worker. And I guess this ties back into what me and Michelle were talking about, where, don't get me wrong, people sometimes, that's existed always, even before phones and technology. There's been plenty of times where people would just die and they had lost touch with their family origins, or didn't have anybody, even with their neighbors, and they would sometimes pass away, and nobody found them sometimes for weeks, days, whatever. But you always think somebody like that, like nobody, that they did, how's this, that they didn't have enough constant contact, either by phone or an email or something, for somebody to say, "That's really weird that I haven't talked to so and so, or I've called mom, or I've called so and so." And because he has three children by another marriage. They didn't have any kids, but he had, like, nobody. I don't know. I guess that's a part I don't understand. And this also ties into what I mentioned briefly to Michelle about how some of these Jane and John Does, when she was talking about the cold cases, that the first thing a lot of these investigations go to is missing persons report. Yeah, they find a body and they don't find any identification on them, especially if it's in an advanced state of decomposition. Like maybe all you've got is part of a skeleton, maybe, or less. Normally, if they've got enough to, like, let's say, determine what the sex is, what their approximate age, and maybe even maybe cause of death, maybe they always look at what do we have any missing persons report. In other words, somebody took the trouble to go to the police and issue a report because they have not heard or seen from this person in X amount of time. And you'd be surprised how sometimes there's people that just they disappear, they fall off the map. Nobody, and I mean nobody, even bothers to go to a police department and say, hey, I haven't seen or heard from this person in a long time. And maybe, depending on their lifestyle, I know that's kind of sometimes people, but in other words, that once you place the report, yeah, this person might turn up, might never turn up, but that nobody even cares enough to say, chances are nothing ever happened to this person. But you know what? Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go into the police department and I'm going to issue a report just in case, just in case, just in case they ever turn up anywhere. You know, a lot of these Jane and John Does, they hope they can match them up with the missing persons or at least narrow the search. How's that? But again, a lot of them go unidentified because sometimes they're from other parts of the country or even another part of the world, or nobody's ever bothered to notify police that, hey, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago, this person fitting this description, this age range, height, whatever. We have not seen or heard from them ever for whatever. All right. Even if this person might have had a risky lifestyle or was known to go around the country, spend a little time here. I mean, again, we come back to the original thing that I'm talking about, Gene Hack, like that people kind of lose touch with anybody that cares about whether you're dead or alive, because that's basically what it boils down to. Somebody cares or notices whether you're dead or alive. And if they don't hear from you or they don't see you or something, they try to find out, like, what happened to you right away. Not like 3 months later, like, hey, I don't know. And I think that's a problem. And I know that it's sometimes because of the lifestyle that it's busy and everything. But you know what? The flip side of it is we've got this. This is the good part is like, hey, where are you? I haven't heard. Are you okay? Blah, 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 blah. And then, if normally you're used to seeing this person and you're like, hey, where are you? Haven't, in other words, right away, and like, I guess I'm not saying in impatience, but that if you're at least used to talking to somebody once a day, for example, or even trading a text, and they don't, you're going to say, that's weird. And by within 24 hours, depending on what kind of relationship you have with this person or that you know for sure, you would have heard from this person some way, shape, or form, and you don't, you're like, that's weird, that's strange. In other words, things start, either you go over to where they live, or even if you are in another part of the town, the city, the country, you can call the local police department and say, look, I need a welfare check on this person. I speak to them every day or every other day, or we trade email. I have not heard from them. They haven't responded to my calls or my texts. Can you please check to see if this person's okay? That there's nobody. I think it's very sad. That's just me being sentimental, but can't help it. And again, guys, I hope you like the show. I'm going to have a lot of neat guests waiting to come on. So again, sign up wherever you find us, whether it's a podcast or video. I'm on all the major podcast platforms. Besides YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on CloutHub, I'm on, God, a bunch of them. Steemit, BitChute, I'm on there. Um, and again, but if you need links to any of them, just go to my website, miamighostchronicles.com or mpelliser.com. Also sign up through my Substack newsletter. Maybe you'll get once or twice a week, maybe if that much, because sometimes it gets crazy. And that way we can stay in touch. And you can, like I said, I have links to even older stuff that's 3 or 4 years, which is still relevant. I think, I don't know. I listen to them and it's like, this is still pretty interesting. But anyway, here we go. Uh, Hopefully 2025 will be a good year. I think it is. At least it's an interesting year, if anything. If anything. So again, guys, take care. Oh, and that's another thing. And let me mention this. The news, another thing that's like the Pope Francis in the hospital. They say supposedly, well, it started out with a respiratory infection. I believe the last I read was he had some type of either kidney or organ failure. So that's another thing that we, as far as the Catholics, they maybe are we going to be picking a new pope or is he going to recover? You know, I think he's been like a couple of weeks already in the hospital, but that's sometimes everything happens all at once. So again, guys, thank you for being part of my audience. You are wonderful, and we shall see what happens by next week. Take care.